When Prometheus stole fire from the gods of Olympus, did he carefully distribute it to all men in equal part? Or, in the careless manner of Titans with lesser creatures, did he assume that all mortal ants are the same, interchangeable, and that knowledge gifted to one is gifted to all? Did he give the secret of fire to the first man he met upon the road and think his quest accomplished? Did this man then hoard that secret, making of himself a lord over all his savage brethren? Did fire ever need to be stolen a second time? What's up, everyone? Michael R. Schulteis here, author of the Rostaval Saga and Ark of Ascension, Mission 1 of Huntress for Hire. Today I'm coming at you with my review of Theft of Fire, Book 1 of Orbital Space by Devon Eriksen. So, Marcus Warnock, a down-on-his-luck asteroid miner, has a problem. His ship, the White Cat, has been bought out from under him by a pint-sized corporate heiress, Miranda Foxgrove. She's volunteering him for a crazy secret mission, and she has blackmail. And it's really good blackmail. Now, this is a hard science fiction novel. It's kind of a quest story involving characters who couldn't be more different, and it's so much fun. And there's a strong element here of forced proximity, so the sparks really fly in an enclosed space. Now, there are 3 named characters with speaking parts in this amazing, wonderful novel, and they're all just outstanding. So Marcus Warnock is our first-person, present-tense point-of-view character. Think of him as a blue-collar asteroid miner. It's a little bit more complicated than that. It's his adoptive culture. He's adopted this culture, but he is very true to it. So think of him as kind of an intelligent, roughneck sort of character. The way that he talks, the blue-collar thing might lead you to underestimate him, but that would be a very bad mistake, a very dumb mistake. He's very smart. He's got a wonderful native cunning to him, and a lot of technical know-how. And he's kind of a, man of the world, as it were. A bit of a, salty language and all that. He's just fantastic as a protagonist. I love the combination of this guy who is smart and capable, rough around the edges, has some shortcomings that really, frankly, really add a lot of depth to the story. It works especially well because Marcus, the way that he is, and his shortcomings and everything, puts him into very stark conflict with Miranda Foxgrove. Think of her as a genetically engineered anime waifu, basically. Her mother chose her genetics. The anime eyes on that cover, that's how she is described. Miranda is the product of a world of wealth in which you really can't be sincere or have any actual friends. She's really, really short, and this has an interesting tie-in with how this world works. Because humans have colonized all of these low-gravity asteroids and Mars and whatnot, if you are low class, you are going to be growing up in a relatively lower gravity environment in most of these areas. And so it's the really high class people who can have more of a normal human stature, and that actually creates this idea that being shorter is higher status, and so then you genetically engineered your children to be shorter even than the norm. So that's kind of gives you a sense of where she comes from. There's an interesting real-world tie-in here in that there are allusions to her being a descendant of Elon Musk. That whole aspect is really fun all by itself, because it's a lot of hints and winks. So Miranda comes off as this haughty princess spoiled brat kind of a character, although to be fair to her, we're getting everything that we see in this book is through Marcus's eyes. So he's not exactly an impartial witness. And with time, Miranda proves to have an enormous amount of depth. There's much more to her than the surface presentation of this haughty, commanding, better than all of you kind of rich girl persona. There's much more to her than that. And I think this is actually one of the better examples I've seen of how you take a character who at first is just pretty insufferable, and then they become very sympathetic and very likable over time. So as you can imagine, the sparks really fly here. There is a profound and total lack of trust or respect or ability to speak the same language. But hoo boy, wait till you see the character arc. It's incredible. There's also Leela. Now, I can't say much about Leela because the nature of who she is very spoilery, and I don't want to do any spoilers. So She ends up being a fascinating person in this sort of unstable and conflict-ridden dynamic between Marcus and Miranda. I loved her character, and the bond that formed with her and Marcus I thought was just really, really wonderful. These are some of the best drawn characters you'll encounter, and it's astonishing to me that this is Devon Eriksen's first novel. Like, I have to take a moment to stop and say, this is a debut. The character work here is top shelf. It doesn't really get better. This is like what was Blue Label or Gold Label, whatever highest label of character work you can think of. That's this. So these astonishing characters, these astonishingly well-drawn characters, really make for a remarkable plot. And the particularly astonishing thing is how this all takes place almost the entire book. They're just in this one ship. And the questions that he builds around where they're going and how they're going to get there and complications along the way are really wonderful and make for an endlessly engaging story. To me, the mark of a really wonderful book is that it keeps you turning the pages, and that's what I had here. That's the experience that I had here. I was never ever bored, and that experience of just wanting to keep reading. I actually read this book back. I finished it up, I think, when my daughter was still in the hospital after she was born, and so here I am with a newborn daughter, and I was still reading this book and just really enjoying it. So with all of that said, the world building for this is another strength. This is a hard sci-fi novel. It's set in the 22nd century, and enough of humanity has decided to listen to the visionaries among us and establish colonies on Mars and Venus and the asteroids, a whole bunch of places. It has a very expanse kind of feel, except that the colonies are all run by these major corporations. They don't have governments. Instead, so there's SpaceX is this major player in this solar system in the future, and some other major corporations seem to have a similar kind of role. Very powerful, bit of a Gilded Age feel to it in that sense, but I actually really liked this because it suggests some interesting parallels with actual history. If you think about the Age of Discovery, if you think about the British and Dutch East India companies, and even the Virginia Company in the American colonies, even the conquistadors had these basically joint stock companies that they formed. So in the real world, companies played a major role in discovery and conquest and colonization in the New World and elsewhere. So I think it actually makes perfect sense how he said, let's take what we have now, SpaceX leading the way for space travel, and just imagine that they succeed and that there's colonies on Mars and everywhere else. This aspect I thought was just really very well done and very interesting and added a lot to the story. The science of this is another thing that I have to really praise. Eriksen apparently is an engineer. I think he's talked about writing flight control software for missiles. If someone wants to correct me, Devon, if you watch this, correct me if I'm wrong. Something really cool or really technical. But he does a fantastic, amazing job of drip-feeding you the science and the technical stuff that you need to know without ever once, in any way, disrupting or slowing down the narrative or bogging you down in anything. Now, I'm a lay person. I have no scientific background. I like science just fine, but I don't understand a lot of complicated scientific or technical concepts or anything about pertaining to that world. So it's really refreshing to read a novel like this where you don't at any point ever feel bogged down or lost or just too dumb, because he does a great job of drip feeding it to you so that you understand it and that it enhances this incredible story. There really was not a missed beat or note at any point in the story. It all fit together. It was all perfect. I don't get how this is a debut novel. It reads like a novel from a guy with 10 novels out or more. So who is this book for? Well, I would recommend this to anybody who wants an amazing, hard science fiction adventure story with a ton of heart. What this book really reminds me of is the better of Robert Heinlein's books. I've not read all of Heinlein, but I've read a number of his books, and I'd say this reads to me like one of the better Heinlein novels. Devon Eriksen is also the most interesting person on X right now, and maybe probably for the foreseeable future. So if you like his X, formerly Twitter, presence, if you like his dunks on commies and everybody else, go read this book. Even if you don't agree with him, he's a fascinating guy. He's full of interesting thoughts and ideas, and I think if you really want a good story, you should go read this book. I know from some of the things that Devon has said that he is not a fan of the finger-wagging pronoun people, the killjoys. So if you want old-school science fiction, you love that aspect of the genre, and you don't want to read about intersectional pronoun people in space, you should go read this book, absolutely. So who is this book not for? Well, so I can't really add very much to what I've already said. I think that if you think about who it's for, it'll tell you who it's not for. I think this should have enormous appeal to all fans of science fiction, even someone like me who mostly reads fantasy. I guess if you'd rather read about intersectional pronoun people in space, this might be a pass for you, maybe even a hard pass. Other than that, I would say even if you don't like science fiction most of the time, you probably really enjoy this book. If you're an exception to that rule and you just don't like science fiction at all, then I guess this might not be for you. With all of that said, if you miss the days when science fiction was about bold ideas and grand projects and compelling characters, if you love a good sci-fi story from an author who doesn't hate you and actually just wants to entertain you, go read this awesome freaking book. I'll link it below. Thank you so much for watching. If you're still watching, please do like and subscribe. It helps to grow the channel, and I'll hope to see you on the next video.